Thank you, Shelley. It's my pleasure to be here, and I get the opportunity to talk to you a little bit about what I'm really passionate about. I've been a venture investor for just over 11 years now, and over the past 4 years, I've focused purely on marketing technology. So it's something I truly just dearly love. But let me start off today with a question. So when was the last time, just think about your own consumer behavior. When was the last time you traveled somewhere, visited a new restaurant, or even bought a new product without reading a review? Now think about the last time you were influenced by a commercial that made you get up off of your chair, go to your iPad, and buy that product. I asked these two questions, and I want this to be a running theme today in my talk because it's really the beginning of what I think is transformative in digital marketing today and how it's really going to transform how you and I shop over the next 20 years. So let me first start by saying the CMO, who today will soon control more of the IT budget than the CIO, is really in charge, really sort of the queen bee in the organization today. And the reason why that is because for a long time, CMOs have historically managed more of the advertising budget than the CIO, for sure. But now they are getting the opportunity to leverage unique and differentiated technology to help them be more efficient with their spend, and that is enabling them to spend more than the CIO in these organizations. This is pretty big. So when you look at the spend today, the spend is going from about 12 billion to over 120 billion by 2025. That's huge. This is just IT alone. So this assumes that you keep advertising relatively fixed at about $1 trillion. And over the next 10 years, a lot of that spend from the CMO suite is going to continue to creep and creep and creep. And I can tell you as an investor in this space, we are seeing that every single day. We are seeing more dollars shift from not only traditional media, but actually into software. We're seeing these organizations transform. I can't tell you how often I speak with CMOs where they're saying, I need to hire engineers, I need to hire data scientists. And I'm like, what? You need to hire engineers and data scientists? And they'll tell you they're transforming their organizations because no longer can they outsource a lot of these things to the agency. They have to bring a lot of this in-house, and they need a lot of technological know-how in order to deploy and execute upon these unique technologies. The other data point that I'd like to share with you today is when you look at the number of exits. These are just some of the exits over the last 5 years. And it's pretty interesting that some of these have been pretty big, not only just on the acquisition side, but on the IPO side. You know, some of these logos might be pretty familiar to you. But I think what jumps off to me off of this page is the fact that it's not just the traditional buyers that we think of, the Google, Facebooks, the Adobe, Salesforces of the world. I mean, let alone this year, we had a telco buy AOL, right? And for a lot of people, that was kind of surprising. But I'll tell you, after spending so much time in this space, I can tell you they're not done yet. And you're going to see more telcos actually move closer and closer, move higher on the application stack, and get even closer to the consumer. They don't just want to be the dumb pipe going forward. So it was interesting to hear about the customer journey comment just a few minutes ago, because at the center of this is the consumer. The consumer is the one who's driving all this behavior. If you think about where people are spending their time today, it's not watching TV, it's not reading physical newspapers or magazines. It's really been transformed to a digital world. And so here, you'll see that in the past, there were very few media sources. Today, there are really infinite sources where CMOs can spend their dollars. The second thing is, in the past, consumers were really focused on traditional forms of media. That's really changed today, where there are really more flexible forms of media. And more often than not, that's usually in a mobile context. The third thing is, we're seeing that marketers are really abandoning, there was no reason to abandon the emotional appeal, but today, you can buy a lot of consumer data, you can track what your users are doing, and use that data in a more efficient and effective way. So you're not annoying your users, but you can actually build in ads and products to consumers where it's helpful. The last thing is, in the old days, it was a one-size-fits-all message, right? One Coca-Cola commercial that ran nationally, and that just fit everyone's tastes. But today, with social media platforms like Facebook and Twitter, brands have the opportunity to communicate with people on a one-to-one basis. And you can do that in a very scalable way, and that has been game-changing for people. This is then, if you make the consumer the center of all of this, this has then really changed the game for marketers. And here, they've really shifted from more of a gut intuitive feel to a more data-driven process. And to my comment earlier about how this is really changing CMO organizations, that's why they're hiring engineers and data scientists and implementing all this new technology, because they're getting so much more data on their users. And in order to deploy a lot of these new technologies efficiently, you have to embrace technology in your organization. As a venture investor, this space is not easy. It's not easy to pick the winners, because if you look at this chart, it's littered with tons of companies. We did an exercise where we looked at how many marketing technology companies there were of interesting size, over 2,500. So, question is, as a venture investor, obviously trying to get the best returns for my investors, how do you pick the winners? Well, I'll say it's not gotten easier, that's for sure. But the fragmentation is because you can see small pieces being carved off. Everything from the best search engine optimization provider to the best social marketing management platforms to on and on and on. And as an investor, I spend most of my days talking to three constituents. That's obviously the entrepreneurs who are building all these unique and interesting technologies, the CMOs, these are the buyers of these unique services, and the last, which I think is very unique, are the Google, Facebooks of the world. They are critically important to this ecosystem. And this is vastly different than how most of Sand Hill Road is architected. Sand Hill Road is traditionally architected around the CIO. We're gonna move from hard disks to SSDs. Ooh, faster bits, faster bytes. Who cares about Google and Facebook? In this world, you have to be concerned with what Facebook, Google, AOL, Yahoo is doing. And that dramatically impacts not only the CMOs, who are the buyers of this technology, but also the entrepreneurs themselves who are creating these technologies. And so over the last 4 years at Intel Capital, I think we've built a really respectable portfolio, I think by far one of the best in this area, leveraging those techniques, which is constantly being on the phone with CMOs. And what's interesting is I'll spend the first half an hour telling what I see in the technology market. A digital marketer who reports to the CMO will say, I want to implement a social relationship platform. I'll say, great, there are 14, but here are the 3 that you should probably talk to. And of these 3, this is the one I think fits you. You're a global business. You've got to do 40 languages. You've got all these creatives. You've got all this, and we'll go on. And then the next half hour, I spend with them, and they're telling me what else they need help with. And so that's how we've actually built this really amazing portfolio of companies, what I would call the best of breed products. You've seen the software world consolidate quite a bit today, right? You've seen Salesforce obviously own CRM. is, many years, Benioff talked about the marketing cloud and the Frankenstein platform that he built through a bunch of acquisitions. You've seen Oracle. They've been very acquisitive in this space as well, looking to buy a bunch of stuff. Well, marketers today are saying, at least what I'm hearing from them, they're saying, you know what? Free isn't a competitive advantage. I've got Oracle who will sell me this stuff. Obviously, we buy the database, but then they're selling, they're giving me the marketing cloud for free. And marketers are saying, no. Free isn't going to work for me. What's going to work for me is that you can deliver on all these things, and don't tell me that this feature functionality is going to come over the next 3 or 4 quarters. I need this now. Because oftentimes, what the board is asking from me is, who are my customers? And what are they saying about me? And why aren't they buying? And so I'll just finish it off with, again, my premise and the way we've approached this over the last 4 years is the consumer is driving this type of behavior, which means the CMOs will take notice of what the consumers are doing, which means when we want to invest in the best of the best companies in this area, we're going to have the best intelligence. I'll end today with just a quick story. About a few months ago, I was in the market to buy a new wireless radio system. So there are about 15 on the market, by the way. So, the Bose Wave system, I wanted to stick something in our bedroom and have great sound. But, the first thing I did, which I think was such a contrast to probably how I would have bought something 15 years ago, was the first thing that I did was I went straight to Amazon and I started looking at the reviews. And I see a lot of you nodding your heads because that's probably what a lot of you do as well. And then then you start doing some Google searches because maybe you want to broaden the perspective. Maybe you want to read some professional reviews. And then when you're on Facebook, you start getting followed by all these people. Suddenly you get offers from Bose Wave and then the Sonos system. I'm like, oh my gosh, I already bought it. Stop following me. That's the problem that I think we're trying to solve here, which is we all want to leverage a lot of these services, which I think ultimately enrich our lives, but we don't want to be annoyed by advertising. And so what I'll end with today is the reason why I like doing this selfishly is because I want a better experience as a consumer, and I hope that experience also benefits everyone else. Thank you.